So today, unlike yesterday, we decided to go out first. Now, let's see. Thomas started us, and then I was the second up. And then Fritz finished us out. And there was a few things that happened that were funny today. Biggest successes for me today was that I basically realized, and I can't remember if I said this yesterday or not, I was pretty tired, but when you're driving down the road in a car, the car's like maybe 6 feet wide, and you only have to basically take your eyesight over maybe 18 inches to find the center. It's about all it is to the center. When you're in a truck, it's surprisingly not that much different because there's only like 4 feet off from the center because the whole tractor and trailer together are 8 feet. So really, it's like you're about 2 feet over, like center to your eyes from center. And then from there, you have about another 2 feet out to the edge of your mirror, roughly. So it's not that far off. It's basically centered up barely to your right. So one of the things I realized as I was driving down the road is that when you're sitting in your car, the car is like a foot over to your left, and the truck would be about a foot past that. So basically you can line up on just about the same thing as you normally would driving down the center of the road, which is nice because I concentrated today on not riding the line. Like Danny had told me in the past, you like riding that center line, don't you? And he kept telling me to check my mirrors, because I kept saying, I feel like I need to be over to the left. He says, well, use your mirrors. I was like, amazing. That actually sounds logical, doesn't it? And so I glanced at him. Now, the biggest thing is, in a car, it's just a glance like this to see out your mirrors. But in a truck, you have to do all the way over there. Then you have to go all the way over there. And it just feels like you're looking off the road too long. Just like when you go through a turn, you have to check your mirrors to make sure you don't hit the curb or hit the white line. And so you're driving down and then you're like, slow down, go through the thing, cut all the way in, all the way to the left. And then you're watching that rear corner while still having to make your turn. It just feels like you're going to hit it. Thomas only hit one curve today. I basically ran over every single white curve there was, with the exception of, I think, one or two. There was a couple of turns I came to, and I didn't know that because there was a car in the left lane in the right side. I came to a stop, and he's like, the light's green. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't think I can make it. And he's like, you don't think you can make it? It's a pretty wide turn. I'm like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. My judgment was off. I mean, leave it to a trucker, someone with a lot of experience, to be able to tell you what you can and can't do. Now, granted, both of those times, if I would have done it a little differently, just like snugging next to the cars a little bit longer, I probably would have been able to make it. But it seems really weird swinging towards cars. It's also really weird how it doesn't really matter how far you violate the center double yellow line and how far over. Like, you can literally go into the oncoming lane and circle, stay in that thing for a good 8 seconds while you slowly make your turn out and around. Maybe not 8 seconds, but it's a long time. It feels like a long time. You can go into whatever lane you want to, as long as the right rear tire or the left rear tire does not happen to go over that little solid white line. It's really odd. Like, who cares if you drive into the oncoming lane as long as that little white line is not violated by your tire? It's really weird to me because most of the time there's a curb, and it just seems like it would be very odd. Like, you don't have to, you shouldn't necessarily try to jump the curb or anything like that. But if there's no one there and you end up slightly running a tire just like on the edge of it, that's enough to fail you on the test. Doesn't feel like it should, but who knows? So that's the biggest thing that's going to be on my mind today. That was what we did. Did a really funny thing. Danny, the instructor, he got a little. He's a country guy and he's very good at what he does, but he's also he gets a little sarcastic sometimes. when it was time for me to pull over so Fritz could jump in the seat, he said, all right, there's a little pull off up here at the top of this hill. Go ahead and pull off there. And he says, it's a little bumpy. I was like, okay. And I said, copy that. And got up to the top. And I was probably going 10 miles an hour. I think I mentioned yesterday, if you're in a low car, like my car is very low to the ground, everything seems to go really fast. But if you're in an airplane, you can be going hundreds of miles an hour, but it feels very slow. It's because you're farther from the ground. In a truck, you're like 8 feet over the ground, and it feels like it's going very slow. So you can be going 10 miles an hour, but it's surprisingly fast on the ground. And so when I pulled off onto this thing, the tractor and the trailer start bouncing all over the place, up and down, because it's bumpy as crap. And it was funny because we're bumping all over the place. I mean, I feel it. We're all over the place. And I'm just like, yikes, that I hit that too fast. And Danny waits until I'm almost stopped. He says, the thing about this is bumpy. Did that just not concern you at all? And I'm like, apparently not as much as it should have. It's just, I mean, it just feels different in the truck, man. I got to get used to that though. But this has been the past 3 days we've gone out in the truck, and I think they're going to let us go out one more time this week or Monday of next week. We'll see. Now, there was one day that Thomas wasn't there. There was one day he was there for a half day. I don't know if they're going to test us on Monday, because that would technically be our last day, so we should go Tuesday. But they'll probably want to keep us stick shift people together, because if 2 of us test and another one, you have to bring the truck back later in the week. So I think what they're probably going to try to do to make sure we all have all of our hours is delay us and train us a couple extra days, and then we'll test Thursday. I think the automatic people are probably like the leftover Tom team from Amazon. The leftovers from this week will probably test on Tuesday. Then the automatic people will test Wednesday, and then we're probably going to test on Thursday. Now, I'll tell you this. Part of me wants to go ahead and do it, get it over with. Part of me says the more practice, the better. It's a lot, I feel pretty good about my pre-trip. I feel like I got the script down. I still want to review it and practice it, because, it's one of those things where you practice it over and over again, and it stays in the forefront of your mind. And then you give it a day or so, and parts of it have sunk in a little bit. Parts of it get a little fuzzy. So I'm going to be looking at the paperwork probably again tomorrow and refamiliarizing myself with all of it, because I need to make sure I stay on top of it. Because if I don't do it, if I just say, oh yeah, I got this, then I'll forget stuff, and I don't want to do that. But every single time I look at the tractor trailer or combination, I go through the pre-trip. I'll look at the engine. I'll look at the actual truck itself. I'll look at the trailer. I'll look at the coupling. Every time I get into the car now, I'm kind of glancing around at everything, at least what I remember, and hopefully it's everything. So yeah. Today was good though. It was, the morning was good. And then after lunch, it was a little sprinkly, but we went to the yard, and again, they were understaffed because Jason's away on vacation, and Mark's out with the people getting tested. So there was Orlando, there was Ruben, and then Danny had the people out doing, ship pad today. So there was just Ruben and Orlando in the yard, and there's not a whole lot of people there anymore. Most of the people have tested or were out with Danny. So there was only maybe about 10 people there, and me, Thomas, and Fritz. They basically said, practice parallel parking. So we went over and took the truck over there and practiced that. And Ruben was watching us, but at this point, we kind of had the technique down. So if we screw something up, we'll work. We know to pull forward. We know when we can straighten things up, and we'll kind of figure it out. But for the most part, he just stands back and watches to just make sure and supervise that, we're not going to do anything crazy. And we have a pretty good, pretty good basic knowledge of the truck. So we're good. We're not great, but we're good. And so he doesn't have to micromanage us or anything like that. He just stands back from afar and watches us while teaching his group and stuff like that. As long as we're being supervised, which we are. I mean, he's just watching us. And it's good. It's good because because most of the time when we're over there, it doesn't matter if he's 30 feet away from the truck, watching us do the maneuver, or if he's 65 feet away from the truck, next to watching another group, and he's literally between our two groups, maybe focused on them when they're going, and he's in the middle watching us both. So, I mean, you can easily do both. It's not like it should be a violation of anything or any rules or whatever, because, if we did something stupid, they would catch it real quick. Plus, we're on a walkie. He puts we have a walkie inside this. So if we did want to say something to us, but by this point, we're all pretty much got the techniques down. There was a couple of times that just the truck that we were out on this morning drives a little bit from the one that we practiced in this afternoon. It just feels a little bit different. And so admittedly, I as we started to do the parallel parking, I lined things up and started to kind of think, oh yeah, well, you know what it was. Where was it? Was it lined up to half the landing gear, a little bit over, or was it 3/4? Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to split the difference and call it 2/3. So I started to do my turn and I overshoot my mark. And then I was like, I can correct this. But then I was way too tight. So at that point, I was all over the place. And then finally, I just kind of laughed and pulled forward and kind of lined it back up. But after that, the damage was done. I did something similar the second time, but I said, all right, don't go to 2/3 of the landing gear, go to half. And then I was too shallow. And then I was like, wait a minute, why is this not working? Well, it's because I was lining it up right, but and I know what it was. It was that when I do the maneuvers, I turn the wheel all the way, and after I hit all the way to the edge, I bounce off and hold it like 2 inches away. That way you make the turn, it's not quite as wide, and by the time you see it, you're a little bit farther in there. So the angle is a little steeper, and then you reverse the wheel and stuff like that too. Well, it was a feel thing that the last time I did it last week, I locked into that position and then back off like 2 inches, and then I go backwards. Then as soon as I see that part of my landing gear, I straighten back up, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And by the time I did it the third time, I was like, okay, well, this feels better. And then I got it in there. I was a little tight. I think I didn't hit cones or anything like that time, but I did one more pull up than I was happy with. And I remember looking at it, just kind of laughing and shaking my head saying, I got this. Why is it so difficult all of a sudden for whatever reason? So anyway, we switched sides at that point, and then from there, I was kind of back in the mode, so I didn't mess up any on the other side. I think I did like one pull over every other maneuver, and that was it. But no, it was fine. I won't say it's mastered or anything, obviously, but it feels comfortable. It feels good on both sides. What you got to do is if you start to mess something up, correct it before you move on. That doesn't mean, and pulling forward does not mean that you are just a bad driver. It means that you're lining up correctly for the maneuver to continue. And I was like, okay, well, I'll back up and I should be able to correct this thing. So, as you're backing up, if you're not lined up exactly in the cones, exactly where you are, or as I'm backing up, I'm trying to negotiate the trailer where it needs to be. And most of the time I was able to get it pretty close. And then if I wasn't exactly on it, I was like, well, I'm on the mark. So this means I'm going to have to go a little bit tighter on the turn and then slower on the release. So that means that I'll start to correct, and then I'm going to be going towards the cones this way. So that way that I'll turn from here, I'll turn tighter, and then I'll gradually curve my way in. So that tighter, the first move anyway. So anyway, we finished the day, and it was great. It was fine. So another good, uneventful day that there wasn't any conflict, there wasn't any freaking out or aggressiveness or anything like that. It was a good day. So, we'll go back tomorrow and see what they have in store. I hope it's not straight back and offset, because it probably will be, because those are, I feel very confident with those. It's basically offset. It's basically the same exact cut as parallel parking. It's just not quite as steep. And then straight back is easy. I mean, it's basically part of almost every technique you do at some point in the maneuver. Like when you do the offset, you start by turning it at an angle, and then after you do the second angle and you're in front of the other, when you're in front of the box, you back up until you hit the mark. When you're doing straight back, that's also obviously straight back. When you do the alley dock, you get the box, you get in the box, and then you go straight back. When you're doing parallel, you get your angle, then you go straight back, and then you do your other angle. So I mean, every single technique has the straight back. So it's not something that I feel like I need to practice as much as like the alley dock. We'll see what happens. But I hope we get a chance to go out again, because there were mainly, I think there was 4 things I needed to work on that I told myself. Number 1 is centering myself up in the lane better, which I did. The second thing was, as Danny referred to it, sawing the wheel. Well, one of the things I concentrated on today was staying more smooth right in the middle, trying to do very small moves and slow moves. The third thing is shifting. And I think I said yesterday that shifting fast isn't good. The biggest problem I have is that I am trying to, when I shift, my RPMs aren't exactly where they need to be. And so if I'm downshifting, for example, I won't drop them down, the RPMs down to like 400 or 500. I'll drop it down to like 1,000. And you may say that's not that bad, because, it's only like 350 or 400 RPMs that you need to make up for by popping the gas. But my problem is I push the gas down way too strong, and I pump the RPMs up to like 1,800 or something like that. Then it doesn't go in gear, and all it does is grind around. So I need to get better with that. Also, I still am pressing the clutch all the way in, because it's a bad habit that I've gotten into for the past 30 plus years driving with my stick shift. No, I haven't been driving a stick the whole time, but my first car was a stick shift, and I've driven them for years now. So I need to get in the habit of just pop, light pop. But today when I was shifting up, I was like, okay, pop once to get it into neutral, and then I separated, as opposed to going pop and trying to time the 2 fast pops to my hand movements. And almost every single time my hand movement would not get exactly there. I did go from like 3rd gear. I couldn't get it into 4th. So I went ahead and hit the switcher, went up into what I thought was 5th, and I went into 7th. And, Danny's just kind of dry. He's like, that's 7th. And I'm like, you feel the thing has no power. It's like coughing and struggling. And I'm like, oh yes, it is, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, you need to go, you needed to go into 4th. I'm like, yes, I did. I mean, I know what to do. I just couldn't do it. And so I was like, I'm going to go ahead and shift. So I shouldn't have done that, admittedly. I knew it, and he caught it, and he told me. I was like, yeah. The downshift I need a little work on. So as I'm downshifting, clutch in, and then I need to just go pop a little bit on the gas, pop a little bit on the pop gas, clutch, boom. I can break that down if we do it again. But, my main success today is that I was better centered in the lane, and that I was better on shifting. I still went over the white lines on almost every turn. I need to get better at that. And so those are the big 4 things I think I mentioned. I need to stay centered in the lane, which I'm doing a lot better now. Not sawing the wheel, as Danny says. So that's the second thing. Shifting needs some work. And then the turns. So the big 2 things that I need to work on is not cutting off the corners, which I'll do next time, and then making sure that I do my shifting better. And I did do better about slowing down for that, which is good. So that's a good start. I was longer in advance. He did a lot less speaking to us. He basically just let us drive. He didn't. And one thing that I'm good about is vocal. I can be a talker, it's not surprising, right? I can talk. So I'm pretty good about calling out every potential hazard I see. The steering wheel, as I'm driving down the road, I'll see, I'm not afraid to just, I'll say there's a car parked on the side of the road on the right, but there's but they put out cones and I don't see any feet underneath the car. So it was probably okay, but I'm going to keep an eye on it anyway. Because, you don't know if somebody's going to get out of it or if somebody's sitting inside just decides to get out. Another point, I saw a deer on the side of the road and so I called that out. Little things like that, you see things and you call it out, say I'm keeping an eye on this car, if a car pulls out of the right, or the left, perpendicular, say I'll call it out and say I'm keeping an eye on the car that just pulled up on the right or pulled up on the left, or, cars just now tried to pass me on the other side, on the oncoming lane. So I'm going to slow down. There was a couple of times I got going, cause it was raining today. There were a couple of times I was going down a hill and on a slight turn, I said, I'm going to slow this down just a little bit, just to make sure that I'm safe for the driving conditions. I'd say that kind of thing. And he didn't say a word, cause I guess it's, I'm calling things out as I see it. And it's not like I'm going to say, oh, cool, I think I can stick this. I'm going to accelerate 20 over the speed limit. It's not like that at all. So, and it was funny because at the very, very end, when after me and Fritz and Thomas, we pulled back up there, he said, well, you can all three drive a truck, whether you choose to or not, that's on you. So it's like, yeah, I guess we know the technique is just putting it to practice and making sure we do it without screwing up. So that's the big thing that we need to work on is, or at least I know I do. That and the alley duck. I got to get back to that and make sure I develop a technique. But one thing I got to do is not rush through the other techniques and just concentrate on hitting the marks on the right thing. So if we do parallel again, I'll make sure I hit the marks and not just try to rush through it. Or I would be a little crooked on the setup. I'm like, it's fine. I'll just compensate by seeing more of the landing gear. It's not a good move. You need to set up properly. And so anyway, there was that. But it'll be good by the time we get to the end of the week, hopefully. So technically today was day 17 of 20 total. Day 12 in the yard. We're getting close. Yeah. Not nervous at all because it feels like it's sticking. It feels comfortable. So yeah, feeling good so far. It will be I'll be a little nervous on the day because I'll just want to make sure I do well and am able to properly say and do what I can. If there's performance anxiety, I'm sure that's to be expected. So anyway, there you go for today.